the BBC on DRM Digital Radio.
Listen to the world's radio station and get extra information and excellent sound. This is the BBC World Service on Digital Radio Mondiale, the future of radio in the digital age.
The BBC and Digital Radio Mondiale. Better radio.
$6 a.m. here in London. Good morning to you. Welcome to Newsday from the BBC World Service with Alan Kasuja and Nomir Iqbal.
The controversial Trump travel ban comes into force, at least in part, banning many Muslims from 6 countries from entering the US.
But it's been challenged in the courts by Hawaii. We're going to head to Honolulu to find out why.
The Islamic State group is on the back foot, with both its strongholds close to a fall. We'll hear from American soldiers.
Mosul and Raqqa are intermediate objectives, path to a final victory, but no one's changing their mind or changing what they're doing just because Raqqa and Mosul have been liberated.
Also, we'll talk about the teenager who shot and killed her boyfriend in a YouTube stunt that went wrong.
And are forest cities the future? Many people in China think so. And we'll speak to one of the architects involved. All coming up on Newsday after this news.
Hello, I'm Neil Nunes with the BBC News. Parts of President Trump's controversial ban on travellers from 6 mainly Muslim countries have come into effect. On Monday, the US Supreme Court partially upheld the ban, which also covers all refugees. It means travellers without close family or business relationships in the US could be barred from entry. Rama Issa Ibrahim, who is the executive director of Arab American Association of New York, says she is disappointed by the move.
This administration is redefining what a family is. I'm engaged to get married, and I have family who lives in Syria today, and unfortunately are not going to be able to be here. It really leaves me at loss for words.
A fact-finding mission by the United Nations Chemical Weapons Watchdog has concluded that the banned nerve agent sarin was used in an attack in northern Syria in April that killed dozens of people. A UN panel will now try to determine whether the Syrian government was responsible. Here's James Landale.
The attack in April on the town of Khan Sheikhoun in northwest Syria was brutal. More than 80 people were killed and hundreds were injured, including children. Since then, inspectors from the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons have spoken to witnesses and victims and analysed samples, and they have concluded that the banned nerve agent sarin was used as a chemical weapon, as some Western governments have previously claimed. Crucially, though, the inspectors did not try to decide who was responsible. That'll be the task of a separate United Nations investigation.
Documents obtained by the BBC show that the cladding, originally due to be installed as part of the refurbished Grenfell Tower in West London, was changed to a less fire-resistant, cheaper version. At least 80 people were killed in the fire at the tower block 2 weeks ago, Tom Simons reports.
The £10 million refurbishment of Grenfell Tower included new cladding to insulate the ageing building and improve its appearance. Residents were told it would be made of zinc. But documents from 2014 setting out a list of savings requested in various aspects of the project show the zinc cladding was replaced with aluminium panels instead. These were a different colour, but the BBC has been told another key reason was to save money.
The Chinese President Xi Jinping has to the authorities in Hong Kong for curbing the territory's independence movement. Mr. Xi made his remarks to senior Hong Kong officials during a visit to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the city's handover from the UK to China. 26 protesters detained by police ahead of the Chinese president's arrival have now been released on bail. World News from the BBC. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres will join the ongoing talks in Switzerland today, aimed at reunifying the divided island of Cyprus. The talks in the alpine resort of Crans-Montana are being attended by the leaders of the Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot communities, as well as the foreign ministers of Greece, Turkey and Britain. The German parliament is to vote later on a bill to legalize same-sex marriage. The measure is likely to be approved after the Chancellor Angela Merkel changed her mind to allow a free vote. Mrs. Merkel has long opposed same-sex marriage, citing concerns over the welfare of children. The bill, which would grant gay and lesbian couples full marital rights, including child adoption, is backed by most of Germany's political parties. There has been some opposition from conservative allies to Mrs. Merkel. President Trump has hosted the South Korean leader Moon Jae-in at a dinner in Washington ahead of formal talks on how to handle North Korea. Steve Evans reports.
President Trump said he very much respected President Moon and the people of South Korea. The South Korean leader said he wanted a friendship with Mr. Trump to find common ground to resolve the crisis over North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. President Trump sets great store on persuading China to pressurize North Korea into renouncing nuclear weapons, but he's indicating that he feels the approach isn't working. It's not clear what the United States would do if North Korea can't be dissuaded from its current path.
The New South Wales government in Australia is to begin deploying drones fitted with sirens to alert swimmers and surfers to the presence of sharks in the water. Shark spotting drones and helicopters have already been used on Australia's east coast, but this is the first time sirens have been fitted. BBC World News.
Good morning. Thank you for the news update. Welcome to Newsday with Alan Kasuja and Nomia Rickmal. In a moment, we're going to hear why many people in Hawaii aren't too happy that part of Donald Trump's travel ban on people from certain countries will be implemented.
Also, Islamic State is losing its hold on two of its most important cities, Mosul and its supposed capital, Raqqa, and later on, why are so many people warming up to forest cities in China?
Let's begin in the United States, where the Trump administration's revised travel ban has come into effect. It's been designed to set new restrictions on refugees and immigrants from 6 mainly Muslim countries. Some of those who will not be able to enter the US in the next 90 days or so are grandparents, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, grandchildren's, in-laws, and extended family members.
The country's Supreme Court is to make a final decision on the ban in October, but there's plenty of opposition, and at the forefront is the state of Hawaii. The court there has challenged the extent of the ban. Let's speak to Hakim Wansafi, who is chairman of the Muslim Association of Hawaii. Good morning, good evening where you are, and welcome to Newsday. It's intriguing that Hawaii is at the center of all this. Why is that?
Aloha and good morning to you. You know, they say that precious things come in small packages. And I think in this case, beautiful and great things come in from a small state like Hawaii. I think when the Trump administration said that they're going to have this Muslim ban on 7 countries, we know that there's something wrong with it. We know it's un-American. And just because we're a small state, we wanted to make sure that we team up with the Attorney General's office and other stakeholders and oppose it because it does affect.
And beyond just it being the right thing based on what you're saying to do, how has it affected the Muslim community in Hawaii?
It does. I think the initial one has 7 countries and also has permanent residents and refugees. It affected over 100 families here in Hawaii. The watered-down version, ban number 2 now, it doesn't affect as many, but still we believe it's un-American, it's unconstitutional, and that we have to stand for justice and for equality, in this case, against Trump.
Do you have any stories that you could tell me just to illustrate how it affected families there?
Sure. I think one that we joined into the lawsuit, directly into the lawsuit, is a grandmother that wanted to come and see her grandchildren and her daughter. The daughter is an American citizen. We had cases of students that have visa and they are afraid to go back to their countries, one of those 7 countries. We have a mother who wanted to attend the funeral and she wasn't able to do that. I think this is, although it's a simple signature of a pen, it is having a real effect on real human beings and real Americans that want to join with their families.
And I imagine that part of the problem is you'd like some clarification on extended family. Is that right?
Yes, I think this is a clear defeat to Trump's promise that he's going to have a total Muslim ban. It's very limited. And the United States Supreme Court has said that if you have a bona fide connection to the United States, then this will not affect you. However, in the Trump of America, they have defined grandparents and grandchildren as not a close family members. So we are seeking legal advice right now, and we may challenge that as well.
Really good to talk to you. Thank you very much for helping us understand that and for making time to speak to us. Hakeemun Safi, Chairman of the Muslim Association of Hawaii.
And later on Newsday this morning, in an hour's time, we'll be hearing another viewpoint. A Syrian American who has family stuck in Aleppo says he 100% backs President Trump's travel ban. Now, the US says coalition forces expect to retake all of Mosul from the so-called Islamic State within days. That statement comes as American-backed forces in Syria have encircled the IS stronghold of Raqqa. Our correspondent Gabriel Gatehouse has been covering the offensive there and has been given access to American forces.
The battle for Raqqa is far from won, but already they're looking at a future post-caliphate. In the town of Ain Issa, barely 35 miles north of the front lines, the US envoy to the coalition fighting the group that calls itself Islamic State, Brett McGurk, has arrived to meet local leaders in Waco. The American presence here is growing quietly.
There's tremendous challenges ahead. The United States is committed to defeating Daesh. That's why we're here. We're going to defeat Daesh. And we want to make sure that obviously what comes after Daesh is stable. And if you look at the record to date, we have now coalition-backed operations in Iraq and Syria have cleared out about 60,000 square kilometers of territory. We've liberated over 4 million people.
As the coalition advances into Raqqa, families are fleeing. Many end up in this camp, tents, heat and dust. All of them lived under the harsh rule of IS, not all against their will. One corner of the camp is reserved for the wives and children of IS fighters. Perhaps not surprisingly, these people are not popular. Noor left Lebanon for Raqqa 2 years ago to join her husband, a jihadi. When he was killed, she married a Tunisian, and so she joined the ranks of a relatively privileged group, the wives of foreign fighters. There seems little sympathy here for the treatment of sex slaves at the hands of their captors.
There was a lot of tension between the wives and the sex slaves. Some of the wives even divorced their husband because of them. They were spending too much on the sex slaves, bringing them the best makeup, clothes and accessories. My first husband had an app on his phone that was a market for sex slaves. They were sharing photos of the sex slaves with the best makeup and clothes and asking £2,000 for this one, £3,000 for that one. A virgin costs £10,000.
The caliphate may be weakened, but its mentality persists. On a dirt runway carved discreetly into a hillside, a US military transport plane touches down. This is the main logistics hub for the American effort here in northern Syria. From this base, they support their own forces and arm the SDF, the coalition of Arabs and Kurds who are leading the assault on Raqqa. Well, they're putting up barracks here, really. We've got about a dozen buildings going up here, soldiers digging trenches for electricity, a digger there. They say that they're made of bricks, made mostly of mud from the Euphrates River, so local materials that they say they can take down pretty quickly, but I have to say it does have the slight air of permanence about it. Well, all of this infrastructure has gone up in a really short space of time, and it's coincided with rapid advances by the anti-IS coalition. But the question is, what happens when the caliphate falls? Because as we know from Afghanistan and from Iraq, it's always easier to get in than it is to get out.
ISIS is certainly not defeated. when Mosul is liberated or Raqqa is liberated. There's a lot of hard work left to do.
That's General Stephen Townsend, the American commander in overall charge of the anti-IS coalition in Iraq and Syria.
I think it means we're not done anytime soon. We're certainly not done after the fall of Raqqa and Mosul. And actually the world coalition recognizes this, and I think it's a strong coalition, and there's nobody stepping back. And Mosul and Raqqa are intermediate objectives on a path to a final victory, but no one's changing their mind or changing what they're doing just because Raqqa and Mosul have been liberated.
The United States has been reluctant to publicize its presence in Syria. Their troops number in the hundreds. They won't say exactly how many. Their special forces are involved in fighting on the ground. Their planes are bombing Raqqa from the sky. Do we know where Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is?
Man, I was hoping you knew. If you know, please tell me, and we will kill him forthright. I do not know where Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is. I wish I did. It's the question of the hour. And we will kill him the minute we find out where he is. And I suspect, you know, it's I follow everyone's claims. Everyone claims to kill him. At least once a month we have someone claiming to kill Baghdadi. And the latest one has been made by the Russians. I wish them well. I hope that they did. I'll be happy to hear the news if they did. I suspect they did not.
Speaking of the Russians, earlier this month, the Americans shot down a warplane belonging to the Russian-backed regime in Damascus. For now, Washington and Moscow share a common enemy. But once the Islamic State is gone, two big powers will be left backing different sides in an unfinished war. The potential for confrontation is real.
That's our correspondent Gabriel Gatehouse in the IS stronghold of Raqqa in Syria.
Business news is coming up in a few moments, and later on we'll be speaking to an architect who is involved in designing cities of the future, forest cities in China. Stay with us to find out details. Matthew Kenyon is here with the Sports News. Good morning, Matthew.
Hi, Alan. An important performance was how Germany coach Joachim Löw hailed his side's 4-1 victory over Mexico in the second semi-final of the Confederations Cup in Sochi last night. They'll take on Chile in the final. They were 2-0 up inside 10 minutes. Mexico's consolation came in the last minute of the game. A remarkable day yesterday for Wimbledon number 6 seed Johanna Konta. First, she beat French Open champion Jelena Ostapenko at the Eastbourne tournament, and then with a second match in one day because of heavy rain earlier in the week, she saw off world number 1 Angelique Kerber to make it to the semis. Wasn't all plain sailing though. She suffered a heavy fall during the match against Kerber. Problems for Australian cricket. The pay deal between the governing body and their players is about to run out at 14 GMT today. A late deal is looking unlikely. It could threaten upcoming fixtures. Won't have an effect on the Women's World Cup, which is currently going on. Yesterday, Australia beat Sri Lanka. India also got a victory, beating West Indies by 7 wickets.
Matthew Kenyon, thank you very much.
You're listening to Newsday from the BBC with Alan Kasuja and Nomir Iqbal. Just a reminder of the headlines this morning. Parts of President Trump's ban on travellers from 6 mainly Muslim countries have come into force, but the legal wrangling over it continues. The UN Chemical Weapons Watchdog has confirmed that sarin gas was used in a deadly attack in Syria in April. And it's come out that the cladding used to renovate a London tower block where at least 80 people died in a huge fire, Grenfell Tower, was changed to a less flame-resistant variety to save money.
It's 18 minutes after 6 o'clock here in London. Let's go to America now and the strange but true story of the YouTube stunt that went wrong. It happened in Minnesota, and it involves Pedro Ruiz, who's died after reportedly asking his girlfriend to shoot him. Well, they recorded a video for their YouTube channel.
His aunt says they only recorded the shooting to get famous. As for the girlfriend, Mona Lisa Perez, she's now been charged with second-degree manslaughter. Ryan Laughlin is covering the story for the local news station Valley News Live.
It was an attempt to gain viewers. It was an attempt to gain notoriety, and they had a YouTube channel, this 19-year-old woman and her 22-year-old boyfriend, and they wanted to shoot a book that he was holding in front of him. They had said that they had tested this. This is coming from the aunt who I spoke with on Tuesday. But they had wanted to shoot this book that he was holding in front of his chest, thinking that it would stop the bullet, and it was from a 50 caliber handgun, which is an insanely strong firearm. and obviously it didn't stop the bullet, and he was killed as a result. This was a calculated thing that they were planning on doing, and it's what adds to the tragedy of the story is she's 7 months pregnant with what's going to be their first boy, which they're planning on naming after him, Pedro. That happened before any of this all happened, so that's another layer of tragedy to this already sad story. There was a bar just down the road, and just a small group of people actually heard the shot. And then soon after, law enforcement shuts down the road. A helicopter lands in the street thinking that they're going to medical evacuate this person. But apparently it was clear on the scene that medical evac was not going to do any good for Pedro Ruiz because they waited for the family to get there to see him before they shipped him out. So it was a group of onlookers, about 30, 40 people who witnessed the aftermath of this. And the thing, too, is if this goes to court, there's possibly going to be video evidence. I mean, who knows what's going to happen because it's so early on and what happens with this manslaughter case, the charge against her. But there's video of this going on and there's proof online of what they were thinking beforehand. So it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of penalty Mona Lisa Perez ends up with.
That's reporter Ryan Laughlin just telling us about the story of a teenage girl who shot her boyfriend by accident while they were recording a video for their YouTube channel. Let's get the business news now, and makeup brand NARS has got in a bit of trouble over animal testing. With us is our business presenter, Vishala Shipatna. Vishala, this is quite shocking, isn't it? Because isn't NARS supposed to be against animal testing?
Yeah, that's right, Nomia. So they've always made quite a big deal about the fact that they are against it, but it's come out that they've introduced animal testing in China on its makeup products over there. They've said that it was necessary for them to be able to start selling its products in China, and so therefore it required some animal testing on some of their lines. Now, according to a US report, China has an estimated $50 billion in domestic sales of beauty products in 2015, and the market there is growing. So you can see the attraction to want to dominate that beauty market. It's also projected to become the largest market for personal care and cosmetic products globally in about the next 5 to 10 years. So there's certainly money in that business, but social media has shown that actually lots of users and customers aren't very happy with this. They feel a little bit betrayed. They've taken to Twitter and have said that they're going to boycott the brand. But to be fair to NARS, it's not the only familiar brand to be sold in China and therefore be subject to the law over there. So foreign companies dominate the market. L'Oreal's a big brand there. Shiseido, who own NARS, is one of the biggest sellers. So they aren't the only ones. But say if social media is correct, there seems to be a bit of a campaign against them.
Speaking of social media, Instagram are saying that they're going to ban all negative comments.
That's right. So social media is often the subject of criticism when it comes to particularly people of a certain age, young, under the age of, say, 25, for bullying. There's been lots of reports over the last couple of years of people being cyberbullied. And so Instagram have decided that they're going to take a stance over this, take action and ban all negative comments. They've actually said that a lot of the comments on Instagram aren't negative. It's a very small proportion, but they're going to employ and allocate resources to look into posts and remove and take down negative ones.
So there you go, Alan. You're a big Instagram user, aren't you?
Look who's talking. So are you. And so is Vishala.
Yeah.
No negative comments allowed now.
No. But that's a relief. It's a relief. Absolutely.
You've got to like all our pictures, Alan.
Yeah, I'm actually going to post 2 pictures of Vishala and Nomi in a moment. We'll stay in China, and China is the largest investor in renewable energy project, according to the United Nations. So it's no surprise that it's also supporting ideas that promote green living. And one such idea that's soon to be turned into reality is a forest city in the south of the country. So what does it hope to achieve with this? We're now joined by Stefano Boeri, who is from Stefano Boeri Architetti, which is the company that designed Liuozhou Forest City. Welcome to the program. First of all, what is a forest city? What are you envisaging?
Well, Forest City is a real city with more than 50,000 trees. But the point is that the trees are not only on the horizontal surface of the city, but also the facades of the building. So It's an experiment of a new city that can also contribute to clean the polluted urban air in China.
So, when you say forest city, you're talking about 50,000 trees. Can you just give me a sense of the relationship between the houses or the living spaces and the trees? Are we looking at tree houses, for example?
No, we have already designed and built some vertical forest in Milano. We are building a vertical forest in Angiers. It's a new generation of architecture that hosts trees and plants in the balconies, on the terraces. And this is really something of totally new. So the image that you have is an image of a building which has nature inside it. So it's a totally different idea of architecture.
I imagine that this took quite a lot of collaboration with scientists to understand what sort of trees needed to be planted and where.
Yeah, sure. We have worked from the beginning with botanists, with expert in structure, and with expert in, just to give you an example, we have to make trees at 130 meters. That means that trees has to resist to extreme windy conditions. So it was really an interdisciplinary work.
And what about the cost of doing something like this? Is it cheaper than it would cost you to build a normal city, or is it more expensive?
Absolutely. No, the cost of trees, plants, and shrubs is, as we know, not relevant. The cost was at the beginning, because we have built in some part of Europe already some small example prototype of a vertical forest. So the cost was a cost of research, and in part the cost of irrigation and maintenance. But, well, for sure, it's absolutely a sustainable cost.
And ultimately, what is the goal in what you're trying to do here?
Well, you know, the 75% of the CO2 is present in our atmosphere is produced by cities. And we also know that forests and woods are absorbing 35-40% of that CO2. So to move forests inside the city, to create forest city, is a way to fight the enemy in the field, or if you better, is a way to reverse climate change. And I think this is one of the main goals of this proposal.
Now, if I understand you correctly, you've done this in Milan before. Is it cheaper to do this in China than it would be in Milan?
Yes, the one that we have built in Milano 3 years ago was the first, and so was more expensive also in terms of research, of new technological solutions. In China, this forest city is composed by 60, 65, and 70 buildings of different nature. So we have schools, museum, hospital, a residential building of different sizes. So for sure, we are now, let me say, developing a city with a totally different cost.
You know, when I saw this story initially, I thought to myself, it seems like we're going back to where we started, going back to being very native, if I may.
Well, it's a way to go back to a different relation with nature. Trees are part of our daily life or our landscape, and to make trees part of our building it's a new step. Honestly, I think that has nothing to do only with aesthetics, because better is also that part. So a building with trees, that means can change colors and facade season by season. But the point is how we are contributing to clean the air, to absorb CO2, produce oxygen.
Stefano Boeri from Stefano Boeri Architetti, who's designing a tree city, yeah? Live in trees, in a city, in a tree city?
Quite like the idea.
A forest city.
Yeah. It's apparently very calming to be around trees, Alan.
I think I quite like where I live at the moment. We have a news update coming up next here on Newsday. Alan and Nomi with you. Good morning.
This is the BBC World Service, and on this week's assignment...
Many of us face the threat of terror attacks. What's it like being caught up in such extreme violence? It's a year since the Holy Artisan Bakery in Bangladesh was stormed by Islamist militants. I'm Linda Presley with stories of courage and survival from Dhaka.
Journeys to the heart of a story. Assignment at bbcworldservice.com/assignment. With Digital Radio Mondiale, you've no need for internet connections or Wi-Fi spots. DRM radios are truly portable, so you can listen to your favourite radio programmes whenever and wherever you want.
The BBC on DRM for Europe. Better radio altogether.